Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and welcome back to another episode of Theorycraft Thursday. For those of you joining us for the first time, Theorycraft Thursday is a weekly series for the upcoming collectible card game, Total War Elysium, where I will be diving into a certain gameplay or design topic, and this week, we are simply going to be talking about the October mini update, as there's a new round of buffs and nerfs, and we'll look at the cards that were changed and their impact on the current meta. So kicking off the changes, to no one's surprise, is a heavy nerf to the Camo Nomads. It's a nerf to its cost as well as its stats, as it goes from a 5 cost 4/5 unit to a 6 cost 2/3 unit. But despite these heavy nerfs, the Herald effect, where you shuffle both players' hand back into their deck and redraw that many cards, is still intact. And because of this, I believe Camo Nomads will still see a lot of play. Now I understand that this is a new card that was introduced in the October release, and the developers do not want to make major changes to the card just a few weeks after release, but I think eventually something has to happen to this card beyond this nerf, as this does delay some of the effects with the combo with Supply Train to a 8 supply combo, which will largely be a day 3 combo unless you have the vineyard setting up with extra supplies, but those are obviously conditional statements on this combo. But overall, I still think it's very, very strong. It still allows the use of new recruits as part of this combo to get 1 cost copies of the Camo Nomads and Supply Train to repeat this combo with only 2 supplies after the first usage. So I believe the broken aspect of the card, it's still intact and makes it still a very strong card. But we'll see how it does, and I predict this will get nerfed again. Now, Ritual Sacrifice is the second card that saw some nerf, as it goes from a 2 cost event to a 3 cost event. This is indeed a very powerful card, and the developers did make a note that this is the best performing cards of all the new cards that were added, even better than Camo Nomads. And I assume they mean best performing by the highest win rate with this card in deck. But I still believe that is probably due to how strong the generals are that is using this card. Since this is a Trojan card, I believe most of the combos that utilize this card are Agamemnon decks, as he has the ability to easily gain short range, and as you tack on the attack power from a unit that you will sacrifice by using this card, you can get really high burst on back row generals that are trying to stay alive. Therefore, Ritual Sacrifice was one of your finishers to surprise the enemy with damage, much like how Menace can pull the enemy general forward. Now, even beyond that combo with Agamemnon, this card has a ton of synergies with all the Trojan generals. Penthesilea can use this card to safely trigger Shatter. Even if your opponent tried to avoid killing certain unit that you have, you can use this in conjunction with Blood Oath to trigger multiple copies of your own units if you want, while giving Penthesilea increased attack for that turn. Even Priam could utilize this card quite well, as you could have 1 unit attack, then boost it with the +2/+2 from his signature card, then sacrifice that unit to give Priam the extra damage without the stun effect, so that you can use Priam as a surprise finisher. So this card obviously still has tons of value. You rarely played it in the early turns because you don't want to lose board control by sacrificing your own units. But as a late game finisher, this card still has tons of value, even at the increased cost of 3. Then moving on, we have another nerf, this time to the stats of the Veteran Trainer, as it goes from a 3/5 unit to a 3/3 unit. Now obviously this will make removing Veteran Trainer a lot easier, as before you can probably get 1 or 2 boost from the Veteran Trainer, being 3/5. You can have open planes on the field, have this move into a line, boost all the unit +2/+2, then your opponent have almost no way to immediately remove Veteran Trainer, unless you have Crackshot, and you have to play as Empire in that case, as there are not that many 5 damage removals. But now, with it being at 3 health, It's actually a lot easier to get rid of this, as 3 health seems to be the magic number in terms of what card can deal about 3 damage to remove things, whether it's Demoralize, whether it's Set 'em Barrage, are all methods you can use to kill a 3 health unit, which is what Veteran Trainer has become. Now, continuing on with the nerfs, we have the Scribe, with cost being increased from 5 to 6. This is a minor nerf in my opinion, and similar to how they nerfed the Camo Nomads. It's the effect that makes this card strong. Now, of course, increasing the cost will delay the combo, and that could potentially offset some of the power of the decks that utilize this card. But usually you are comboing Scribe with supply catches, and the goal is to draw out your hand. You'll probably protect it with Conceal, so it won't get targeted and destroyed right away. Overall, I still think Scribe is quite powerful, and even at 6 cost, it is still a day 2 card that's playable in most decks that utilize it before. You are giving your opponent about 1 extra turn to burst you down and destroy you, but overall I still think the power of the Scribe is still there, and it's not going to be much of a nerf. And speaking of minor nerfs of increase 1 supply, the Dread Harbinger, once again a new card that can trigger the Dread Host being added into your reserve. The Harbinger is not changed, but the Dread Host is increasing its cost from 5 to 6. It is still a very strong 10-10 unit that if you could play on curve, nothing really can effectively remove it, making it one of the most powerful cards. But the caveat here obviously is not only do you have to have the Dread Harbinger die the day before, but also be able to draw the Dread Host from your deck in the next day, which is often very hard with elements of luck involved. Then moving on, we have a few more nerfs that are rather minor. You have No Quarter with its cost increased to 4, which is definitely warranted. It was given a cost discount, with the effect being weaker as it went from destroying all enemy units that were wounded to just all enemy units in a line. It was still very powerful, but at 3 cost it was just super effective with Blot Out the Sun. The combo pretty much stayed the same. You definitely killed less things because if the enemy played a mix of range and melee units, then you could only choose to kill 1 line. But most people tend to focus only on 1 aspect, so the killing power is still the same. And then the cost discount only made it stronger. This kind of rebounds a little bit, so the Blot Out the Sun combo with No Quarter now costs 5, and if you utilize another ancient combo, Drowned in Flame, it will be a 6 cost combo similar to Pyrrhic Victory, so roughly about the same cost and efficiency. Still very strong. I don't think it will matter a lot for most decks that included it. Wolf Warriors have its health dropped by 1, which I feel like is kind of a trend, as you will see Achaean Bronzeworker also has his health dropped by 1. And the trend is basically 3 health is the magic number for removals, and 4 health is the magic number for survival. And this change obviously both reflect that. Although the change on the Wolf Warrior is a bit strange since it is a fast splash damage card, you typically use this to clear the enemy front line. You don't really count on this surviving to hit again the next turn because it is, after all, a fast unit that gets the damage out right away, and the enemy will definitely target it given that it has splashed. So usually it dies right away because you have to use it to trade health. So I think the effect's about the same. If you're playing aggro deck, this would still be included. Achaean Bronzeworker was way too strong being 0-4. I think 0-3 is probably more fair. And considering the fact you can run this in Pentathilia decks, it could essentially be a 1-4 if you play on turn 1, and it becomes super powerful then. It's still a very high value card, and its own stat really doesn't matter aside from survivability, so I can definitely see the nerf here. Although I could argue it could use another nerf to increase its supply to 2, as what made this card really strong is the ability to play this card on turn 1, as all your subsequent card can get stronger just by having this card on the field. Then these health nerfs continue with Frontier Trackers and Twintian Farm both dropping by 1 health, and that kind of is the trend. Usually you get 1 cost increase or 1 health decrease, as About Face also has its cost increased by 1, which will hurt many combos, whether they are Parthenian Cavalry combos with movement decks or with the Vigilant Watch delaying that board clear to 8 costs, which is annoying, as most cost increases basically impact your combo by a turn, which is what we've been seeing so far with all the nerfs. I have to see if that will actually affect that combo that much, as most decks probably don't depend on that combo being its only board killer. It is just more annoying with that combo. And I used to run it in the Marie Antoinette deck, which didn't play early on at all, as you were focused on trying to get enough peasants killed to transform Maria into the revolutionary mob. So we have to see what the exact effect of this. I can imagine this hurting some of the movement deck a bit more, being the increased cost here. But fortunately, that is all the nerfs in this round of changes, and we can move on to the buffs, as some cards that were underperforming did see some improvement. So another new card that I don't have here, which is the reason why it's grayed out, is the War Clerics. This was originally a 6 cost 1/1 epic card that has a herald ability that gains increased attack for each card in hand. This card was introduced to favor some of the hand building deck styles, maybe Devol or Dongzhuo decks, but it obviously wasn't performing very well. It also has to do with the fact that this is an epic card that was newly introduced, so I'm not sure if many people were actually playing this card or trying to utilize it. Even at 5, I still don't know if I would utilize this, simply because it's hard to imagine playing this on curve. Like, how many cards do you think you will have in your hand when your supply just reach 5? Not that many. Therefore, you probably can't see an immediate effect with this card. That's what was making this card weak, not the fact that it costed 6. So I'm not entirely certain if this buff will make any major changes to this card. I still would not craft it, which is why it's going to stay grayed out here going forward, unless I pull this card from one of the rewards. Now moving on, we have the Angry Mob, which saw a major buff in my opinion. It went from a 4 cost 6/4 to a 4 cost 6/6. Now those 2 health point is rather important, because now I don't think there's any cards that can remove this. And being 6/6 that can be played at 4 with some synergies to self-inflicting decks, which is actually going to be the deck showcase this Sunday, as I want to take advantage of the Angry Mob and put it to the test. I think this is a great card. It has synergies with a ton of cards like Irish Cairn, as well as some Shatter cards that you don't mind dying. So I think there's value here. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be testing this out in the deck showcase this Sunday. Then we have another Viking card that got buffed, the Berserker. It was a 7/3 6 cost card. I played it in one variation of my Lagatha deck, and I thought it was pretty strong. Now being 9/3, it's even stronger. Its only weakness obviously was its vulnerability to demoralize, which can kill unbreakable units. Other than that, 7 attack I felt was plenty enough. 9 attack obviously is way stronger, and the card that comes to mind as what it can clear is the Castle card that can stall, or some high health structures, namely Guillotine or Silk Road. Those 8 health cards can be destroyed by this now. It's a very nice card, and I don't know if some of these epic cards like War Clerk was just under tested, where the sample size was too small to judge whether they were performing as designed. I'll be testing this card out as well, so we'll see. The Relief Force here is buffed from 3 cost to 2 cost, but its attack dropped from 3 to 2. So I don't know if this is a buff or a change. I don't know if we'll see any play either, because the ability of returning target friendly unit to hand, while it's good in some Herald decks, namely Guthrum decks, I don't think you need to invest a card slot to do that, because the issue here is you can do that easily with your signature card right before Daybreak, whereas if you run this card, you have one less card slot to take a potentially more valuable card to use an effect that is not always beneficial to you, as if you have other unit that you don't want to remove, you essentially can't play this card from your hand, as you'll be forced to remove that card. So I still see some issues with this card here. Then Amazon saw 1 health point buff from 4 to 5, which is nice. I don't know if that's what was causing this card to not be played, as I believe the potential of this card is with our Ferocity combo, as you can double the attack on your turn to gain 5 extra attack permanently, but I don't know. I think the issue with this card is the presence of too many other valuable children cards at the similar cost level. Therefore, this was just not seeing enough play, not that the card itself was weak. Then finally, we have a buff which I feel is actually significant. The Town Conscriptor goes from 5 cost 3/2 to 4 cost 2/2, which makes it an excellent day 1 card for Marie Antoinette, as you can get 3 units from this one card, all at 2 health on day 1, because 4 costs can be played on day 1, and it can help her speed up triggering her signature card to transform into the Revolutionary Mob. And in the late game, if you have this card, you can easily spawn out 3 units to take advantage of your new signature card that will give different boosts to your units on the board, up to 3 units. So I feel like the Town Conscriptor can definitely replace a planned card called Conscription for Marie Antoinette deck, and it's more consistent and probably more useful, as these can be melee bodies that can trade back to enemy units. So I think this is a great change. This is one of the buffs I think that has the most potential, and given that it is a timeless card, I think other decks that use mob strategies can also utilize this quite well. So this is one of the buffs that I think is actually quite nice. And that's going to round out all the changes here in the October mini update. Hopefully this will shake up some of the meta, as things are getting overrun by camel decks right now. But on the plus side, the camel decks are starting to get people to take a look at cards like Saboteur, which is a card that I felt was always very strong and underutilized. So there are some positives, and we'll definitely see some more changes as we move into November as the second season roll around. So hope you guys enjoyed this one, and see you guys next time. Bye!